Tonight we're going to talk about one of the most controversial novels ever written. A book that disturbs, dazzles, and refuses to let you look away. If you drift off while listening, that's perfectly fine. No judgment here. This is a space for rest, wherever the story takes us. Lolita is a novel about obsession, about memory, about the seductive power of beautiful language to obscure terrible truths beneath its surface. The story is told by Humbert Humbert, a European intellectual writing his confession in an American prison cell, awaiting trial for murder. He begins with a name, Lolita. He lets it roll across his tongue like poetry, like music, like a spell he cannot break. The America of this novel is the 1950s. Chrome diners and neon motels. Highways stretching endlessly through landscapes of impossible beauty and emptiness. Humbert is a middle-aged European scholar with impeccable manners and a monstrous secret. The girl, Dolores Hayes, is 12 years old when they meet. This is not a love story, though Humbert desperately wants you to believe it is. This is a story about the destruction of a child. Nabokov wraps this horror in the most beautiful prose in the English language. That's the trap, and that's the point. Beauty serving darkness. Humbert's story begins in his own childhood, in the glamorous world of pre-war Europe. His father owned a luxury hotel on the French Riviera. There, when Humbert was 13, he fell in love for the first time. Her name was Annabelle, and she was the same age as him. They shared a single summer of longing glances and stolen moments. One afternoon on a hidden beach, they tried to consummate their young love. They were interrupted. Adults appeared. And then, 4 months later, Annabelle died of typhus. She was gone, and something in Humbert froze forever. In his twisted mind, Humbert constructs a theory. He becomes fixated on what he calls nymphets, girls of a certain age who hold mysterious power over him. Years pass. He marries briefly, disastrously. He suffers breakdowns. He wanders through Europe as it slides toward another world war. Then America calls. Humbert arrives in America to take an academic position. He needs lodging for the summer. A newspaper advertisement leads him to a small town called Ramsdale. The listing promises a room in a respectable home. The landlady is a widow named Charlotte Hayes, and she is eager to show him the house. Charlotte Hayes is desperate for culture, for romance, for escape from her provincial life. She sees this European intellectual and immediately begins to perform for him. Humbert is polite but uninterested. The house is ordinary, Charlotte is tiresome, and he has already decided to decline the room when something stops him. Through the back window in the garden, a girl lies on a blanket in the sun. She is reading a magazine. She looks up. Time shatters. Humbert sees Annabelle. Not literally but spiritually, the same coltish limbs, the same freckled nose, the same impossible magnetism that stopped his heart decades ago. His whole plan changes in an instant. He will take the room. He will stay in this house. He will do whatever it takes to remain near her. Charlotte mistakes his sudden interest. She believes this cultured European man has been captivated by her charm, her home, her desperate hospitality. A triangle forms in that moment. Charlotte wanting Humbert, Humbert wanting her daughter, and Dolores unaware, still lying in the garden reading her magazine, chewing gum. Humbert crosses the threshold into the Hayes household. The trap is set, though it's unclear who has trapped whom. The long, terrible journey begins. Charlotte leads Humbert through her home with nervous pride, pointing out every doily, every painting, every piece of furniture she believes speaks of refinement. Through the doorway of a small bedroom, Humbert glimpses movie magazines scattered across a quilted bedspread. Bobby's socks on the floor, a girl's private world. Dinner that first evening is an exercise in performance. Charlotte serves pot roast and interrogates Humbert about Europe, while Dolores slouches and rolls her eyes. Humbert watches everything. He notes Charlotte's desperate chatter, the way she touches her hair, the sad hunger in her eyes. She is a means to an end. Charlotte asks about his wife. Humbert mentions his brief marriage ended badly. Charlotte's eyes brighten. a divorced European intellectual available under her own roof. After dinner, Dolores sits on the porch swing, bare legs tucked beneath her, reading a comic book by the dying light. She barely acknowledges Humbert's presence. Days pass. Dolores tests Humbert with sideways glances, with casual cruelties toward her mother. With the thoughtless confidence of a child who knows she's being watched. Charlotte announces her plan to send Dolores to Camp Q for the summer. A wonderful opportunity, she says. Fresh air and wholesome activities for growing girls. Humbert feels panic rising. If Dolores leaves for camp, he loses access to her. He must find a way to remain in this house, to keep the connection. Sunday morning, the Hayes family attends church. Humbert sits beside Charlotte in the pew, playing the role of respectable lodger, while Dolores fidgets and passes notes to friends. After church, they visit the Farlows next door. John Farlow is a gentle academic. Jean Farlow is athletic and flirtatious. Charlotte watches Jean watch Humbert with visible jealousy. Jean Farlow touches Humbert's arm while laughing at his European wit. Charlotte's smile becomes fixed, her eyes hard. She moves closer to Humbert, claiming territory. Humbert discovers Dolores sunbathing in the backyard, lying on her stomach, reading. He positions himself where he can watch, while pretending to tend the garden Charlotte has assigned him. One evening Charlotte appears at Humbert's door in a negligee. She has something important to discuss. Her eyes are glassy with wine and desperation and hope. Charlotte proposes marriage. She wants culture, companionship, someone to grow old with. She offers herself and her home and her daughter as a package deal. Humbert considers. If he marries Charlotte, he becomes Dolores' stepfather. He gains permanent access, legal standing, domestic cover. He accepts. The wedding is small and quick. Charlotte transforms into a possessive wife. She redecorates, rearranges, claims every corner of the house. She watches Humbert constantly, hungry for affection he cannot provide. Humbert keeps a diary. In small, careful handwriting, he records his true thoughts. He hides it in his desk, believing Charlotte would never dare to look. The day arrives. Charlotte drives Dolores to Camp Q, a lakeside retreat in the mountains. Humbert stands on the porch, watching the car disappear down the street. Summer without Dolores is torture for Humbert. Charlotte clings to him, demands attention, plans their future together. He writes letters to the camp, posing as concerned stepfather. One afternoon, Charlotte goes to Humbert's desk looking for stamps. She finds the diary. She reads. She discovers exactly what her new husband truly wants. Charlotte confronts Humbert with the diary clutched to her chest. Her voice breaks as she reads his words back to him. Monster, she calls him. Monster. Charlotte runs from the house, still holding damning letters she has written to everyone they know. She does not look as she crosses the street. There is a car. Charlotte dies in the street. A neighbor's car moving too fast, unable to stop. The letters scatter in the wind. No one reads what she wrote. Humbert stands at the window watching the ambulance lights. He feels shock, yes, and something else beneath it. Opportunity. Terrible, undeniable opportunity. He is free. In the following days, Humbert arranges everything. He becomes Dolores' legal guardian. He inherits the house, the car, the bank accounts. He inherits the child. Humbert drives toward Camp Q. The road unspools through summer countryside, green and golden and beautiful. He rehearses what he will tell her about her mother. Camp Q appears through the trees. Log cabins, a dock jutting into blue water, girls in shorts running between buildings. Somewhere among them is Dolores. Humbert finds her and tells the first lie. Her mother is very sick, in the hospital. They must leave immediately to see her. Dolores believes him. In the car, Dolores asks questions about her mother's illness. Humbert answers vaguely. Appendix, he says. Surgery, she will be fine. He keeps driving away from the hospital. They do not drive toward the hospital. They drive toward a hotel Humbert has selected in advance. The Enchanted Hunters, it is called. He checked the name twice. Night falls as they drive. Dolores sleeps against the passenger window, trusting unaware. Humbert watches the road and plans what comes next, what he has always planned. The Enchanted Hunters Hotel rises from the darkness. Colonial pillars, hunting trophies in the lobby, brass fixtures gleaming. A temple of Americana where everything will change. Humbert checks them in as father and daughter. The clerk does not question this. No one questions a well-dressed European man with a tired child at night. The room has only one bed. Humbert requested this specifically. Dolores is too tired to notice or complain. She falls onto the quilted bedspread without changing clothes. Downstairs in the dining room, Humbert orders dinner. Other families eat nearby, children laughing, parents tired from travel. Everything looks wholesome and ordinary. Nothing is. A man sits at the bar watching Humbert. Handsome, theatrical, smoking through an ivory holder. His smile has too many teeth. Humbert does not recognize him yet. Midnight at the Enchanted Hunters. The hotel sleeps. Somewhere a clock ticks. In their shared room. Humbert waits for sleeping pills to take effect on the child. Humbert has obtained pills from a doctor, claiming insomnia. He has calculated dosages. He has planned this night for months, for years, for his entire broken life. What happens that night is the center of the novel's darkness. Nabokov does not describe it directly. The prose circles around it, beautiful and evasive. The horror remains. Morning comes. Everything has changed and nothing can be undone. Dolores is awake, and Humbert must now tell her the truth about her mother. Part of it. Charlotte is dead. Humbert finally says the words, "A car accident, days ago. There is no hospital. There is no home to return to anymore." Dolores cries. Real grief, real loss, a child suddenly orphaned and entirely alone in the world, except for this man who now has complete power over her. The road trip begins in earnest. No home, no school, no fixed address. Just Humbert and Dolores, and the endless American highway stretching toward nowhere in particular. Their first motel is called the Sunset Arms. Pink neon sign flickering, ice machine humming outside, room smelling of disinfectant and other people's cigarettes. Home now. A pattern establishes itself. Driving all day, motel at night, new state each week. Humbert controls the money, the car, the route, the story they tell strangers. Dolores learns quickly that she has one source of power. She can withhold what Humbert wants. She can bargain. She begins to demand things in exchange. Allowance negotiations become ritual. Dolores wants movie magazines, ice cream, new saddle shoes. Humbert pays and pays. It is the economy of their terrible arrangement. They visit roadside attractions. The world's largest ball of twine, mystery caves, petrified forests. Humbert takes photographs of Dolores posed before each landmark, building an album of lies. At a diner counter, Dolores spins on her stool and orders a chocolate milkshake. For a moment she seems like any American teenager. But she is not, she cannot be. Other families pass them on the highway, waving from station wagons. Fathers driving, mothers navigating, children fighting in back seats. Normal American families going normal places. Humbert begins to notice something. A red convertible appears in his mirrors too often. The same car at the diner, at the motel, following at careful distance. The convertible vanishes and reappears. Always too far to see the driver clearly. Always present when Humbert looks for it. Someone is watching the watcher. At a gas station, Humbert asks about the red car. The attendant shrugs. Lots of red cars on the road. Humbert pays and drives faster, but the shadow follows. They cross into the desert southwest. Monument Valley rises in red spires. The landscape is ancient and indifferent to the small drama of their car passing through. At the Grand Canyon, Dolores stands at the railing looking down into that impossible chasm. Humbert stands behind her, one hand on her shoulder, posing for no one. One night, Dolores tries to run. She slips out the motel door while Humbert sleeps. He wakes and finds her a mile down the road, walking toward nothing. After that, Humbert increases the bribes. A new bicycle. Tennis lessons at each town they pass. Movie tickets, record albums, anything to keep her compliant, contained. A year passes on the road. They have crossed America twice, zigzagging through 30 states. Humbert documents everything in his journal: miles, motels, the degradation of a child. Humbert decides they must settle somewhere. He cannot keep driving forever. He finds an academic position in Beardsley, a New England college town. They will pretend to be normal. The Beardsley house has white shutters and a small yard. Humbert enrolls Dolores in school. For a few months, the terrible arrangement wears a mask of suburban propriety. Dolores attends Beardsley Girls' School. She wears the uniform, carries books, walks to class with other girls. For hours each day, she exists outside Humbert's direct control. Miss Pratt, the headmistress, summons Humbert for a conference. She is concerned about Dolores's adjustment. Withdrawn, she says, distracted. Pratt recommends extracurricular activities. The theater club, perhaps. The school is mounting a play called The Enchanted Hunters. The name strikes Humbert like a blow. Dolores wants desperately to audition. He reluctantly agrees. Humbert meets Gaston Godin, a fellow European at the college. Portly, nervous, living alone with curious tastes. They play chess and speak French, two outsiders recognizing each other. Over the chessboard, Gaston hints at his own secrets. Humbert recognizes a fellow deviant, though Gaston's interests run in different directions. They become friends of a sort, mutual blackmail potential. Dolores throws herself into rehearsals. She comes home late, memorizing lines, glowing with a passion Humbert has never seen from her. She is excited about something he doesn't control. Humbert discovers the playwright's name, Claire Quilty, a famous writer of television dramas and stage plays. He has been visiting the school to supervise his production. The name triggers something. The hotel, the red convertible, the man at the bar with too many teeth and the knowing smile. Quilty has been following them all along. Dolores becomes secretive. Phone calls late at night, whispered conversations she ends when Humbert enters the room. Notes passed at school. She is communicating with someone outside his control. Opening night of the play. Humbert sits in the audience with other parents, watching Dolores perform. She is radiant, transformed. And in the back row, Quilty watches them both. Humbert watches Dolores take her bow to applause. He watches Quilty slip out the side door. Two predators circling the same prey, and one of them is winning. Backstage, Humbert finds Dolores in costume talking to a man he cannot quite see. They lean close, whispering. When Humbert approaches, the man vanishes into the crowded wings. Humbert confronts Dolores. Who was that man? What did he want? She looks at him with something new in her eyes. Defiance, maybe. Or the beginning of an escape plan. Humbert's jealousy ignites. He threatens consequences if she continues her secret communications. His control is slipping, and he responds with violence, verbal and otherwise. The cycle tightens. Humbert announces they are leaving Beardsley. Another road trip. They must visit her mother's grave, he lies. They must get away. He must separate her from Quilty. But Dolores is sick, fever and chills. Humbert takes her to the local hospital, where doctors recommend she stay for observation. He cannot refuse without raising suspicion. Humbert visits every day, sitting beside her hospital bed, watching nurses come and go. She seems to be recovering, but something in her eyes has changed. She is planning. One morning, Humbert arrives and the bed is empty. Dolores checked out hours ago, the nurse says. An uncle came for her. She left willingly, even eagerly. Humbert collapses, his nightmare made real. She is gone, taken by his rival, his shadow, his fellow monster. He tears apart the hospital room looking for clues. The hunt begins. Humbert drives back along their route, checking every motel register for familiar names. Quilty leaves clues, mocking wordplay aliases designed to taunt him. The false names are elaborate jokes. Dr. Gratiano Forbson, Arthur Rainbow, Ted Hunter. Each one a literary reference, a private taunt Quilty knows only Humbert will understand. The trail goes cold somewhere in the mountains. Quilty has covered his tracks. Dolores has vanished completely into America's vastness. Humbert drives in circles, searching for nothing. Humbert's health fails. Heart trouble, the doctors say, but it is something else breaking. He spends time in a sanatorium, staring at walls, waiting for word that never comes. Years pass, 3 years. Humbert teaches at a small college, keeps to himself, carries a gun now. He waits. He has learned patience in his madness. A letter arrives one September morning. Cheap paper, penciled address, postmarked from a town called Colmont. Inside, a few sentences from someone calling herself Mrs. Richard Schiller. She needs money. $500 for her husband's business. She is married, pregnant, poor. She asks nothing else. She offers no explanation, just her new address. Humbert drives to Colmont, a mining town in the Appalachian foothills. Slag heaps and company houses. Nothing glamorous here, nothing beautiful, just American poverty laid bare. He finds the address. A ramshackle house with peeling paint and sagging porch. Laundry hangs limp in the gray air. This is where his Lolita ended up. The door opens. Dolores stands there, 17 now, heavily pregnant, wearing a faded housedress. She looks older than her years. She looks like her mother did. Her husband Richard appears behind her. A kind, plain young man, partly deaf from war wounds. He shakes Humbert's hand warmly, knows nothing, suspects nothing, good decent people living small. They sit in the poor front room, and Dolores tells Humbert everything. How Quilty found her at school. How he promised her Hollywood, stardom, escape from the monster who owned her. Quilty took her to his ranch where he made films, special films, with children. When she refused to participate, he threw her out. Another monster. Different appetite, same destruction. Humbert asks her to leave with him. Now. He will take her anywhere. He still loves her, he says, always has, always will. She looks at him with pity. She refuses. She loves her husband. She is happy here, as happy as she can be. Humbert writes a check for $400, everything he has. He leaves her everything and leaves. Humbert drives away from Colmont with murder in his heart. The gun sits in his glove compartment, loaded and waiting. He knows now where Quilty lives. Paver Manor. The name alone sounds like a Gothic joke. Quilty's estate sits somewhere in the countryside, decaying grandly while its owner parties and writes and destroys lives. Humbert finds the estate as evening falls. Wrought iron gates hang open, rusting. The driveway is overgrown. Whatever glory this place once had has long since faded into decay. The mansion looms against the darkening sky, windows broken, shutters hanging loose, yet lights burn inside. Someone is home. Someone is always home at Paver Manor. Humbert walks through the overgrown garden toward the front door. Statues covered in vines, a fountain choked with leaves. Beauty rotting everywhere, just like its owner's soul. The front door stands open, inside chaos reigns. Furniture overturned, bottles everywhere. Theatrical costumes and props scattered as if a party ended badly and no one cleaned up. Humbert moves through the house, gun drawn. Room after room of destruction and abandonment. Then a voice calls out from somewhere above. Playful, mocking, utterly unafraid. Quilty appears at the top of the stairs in a silk robe, drink in hand, cigarette holder clenched between teeth. He smiles down at Humbert like an old friend arriving for dinner. The confrontation is absurd from the start. Quilty refuses to take Humbert seriously. He jokes, deflects, offers drinks, makes literary puns about murder and revenge and jealousy. Humbert produces a poem he has written for this moment. A formal accusation in verse. He demands that Quilty read it aloud. Understand exactly why he must die tonight. Quilty refuses to read. He laughs, crumples the paper, tosses it aside. This infuriates Humbert beyond reason. He fires once, wildly. The bullet shatters a mirror instead. The chase begins through the ruined mansion. Quilty runs, laughing still, through doorways and upstairs and down corridors. Humbert follows, firing badly, hitting walls and furniture. They end up in a bedroom. Quilty, wounded now, crawls onto the bed, still joking, still refusing to die with dignity. Humbert empties the gun into him at last. Quilty dies as he lived, performing until the final breath. Humbert stands over the body, gun empty, breathing hard. He has done it. It changes nothing at all. Humbert walks out of Paver Manor covered in blood that is not all Quilty's. He has been wounded too, somewhere in the chaos. He barely feels it now. He drives without destination, the roads blur, the trees blur. America itself seems to dissolve around him as shock and blood loss take their toll on his body. Humbert drifts across the center line. He drives on the wrong side of the road for miles, not caring anymore. Perhaps hoping another car will end this story for him. Police lights appear in his mirror. Sirens. He does not speed up or try to escape. He pulls over gently and waits with his hands on the wheel. They find the gun, the blood, eventually the body at Paver Manor. Humbert confesses everything except the one thing he believes matters. He loved her. He still insists he loved her. In his cell, Humbert begins to write. He has 56 days before his trial, and he intends to use every one of them. The confession becomes the novel we are reading. Page after page flows from his pen. He writes with the precision of a lepidopterist pinning butterflies, each word chosen to preserve his version of events forever in amber. Humbert addresses the reader directly throughout. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he says. He knows he is on trial. He knows you are the judge. He performs anyway. He claims he writes not for redemption but for record. Not to be forgiven but to be understood. Yet every beautiful sentence begs for sympathy he does not deserve. Consider the opening lines. "Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins." The most famous beginning in modern literature. Poetry masking predation from the very first breath. Nabokov gives Humbert the most seductive voice in fiction. We are meant to be charmed even as we are horrified. That is the trap. That is the entire point. Humbert is what scholars call an unreliable narrator. Everything we know comes filtered through his obsession. We see Dolores only as he chooses to show her, which is barely at all. Dolores speaks perhaps 100 lines in the entire novel. Her jokes, complaints, movie star crushes, teenage slang. Humbert quotes her rarely, and only to mock or dismiss her voice. The real crime lies beneath the beautiful sentences. A child was groomed, abducted, raped, imprisoned for years. Nabokov never lets us forget, even as Humbert tries to make us forget. The prose is the accomplice. Every beautiful phrase invites the reader to look away from the ugliness. To be complicit in Humbert's sanitizing project. Reading carefully means resisting this invitation. Humbert knows exactly what he is. Monster, he calls himself. Madman, he confesses his villainy while simultaneously asking us to see him as more than villain. That is his final manipulation. The purpose of the confession, he claims, is to immortalize Lolita. In art alone, he writes, can she live forever? He makes her eternal by making her his. But Dolores does not live forever. Nabokov tells us in the foreword, through the fictional editor. She dies in childbirth on Christmas Day, 17 years old in a town called Grey Star. The manuscript becomes her only memorial. The novel we hold contains the only version of her that will survive. Humbert has won, in the most terrible way possible. Humbert dies of heart failure just days after completing his confession. He never faces trial. He never faces justice. Only the reader remains to deliver a verdict that never comes. 2 deaths recorded in the fictional editor's foreword. Dolores Schiller and Humbert, both gone before the story reaches us. We read testimony from ghosts about other ghosts. The fictional editor is named John Ray Jr., Ph.D., a psychologist who writes the foreword as scholarly introduction. He entirely misses the point of everything he has read. Ray moralizes heavily. He calls the manuscript a case study. He recommends it for parents and social workers. He treats art as warning label, beauty as cautionary tale. Nabokov hides behind these masks. Ray, Humbert, the manuscript itself. The real author is nowhere and everywhere. Manipulating readers through layers of fiction, pretending to be confession, pretending to be scholarship. This nesting structure protects and implicates simultaneously. No one can be blamed directly. Everyone is implicated in transmission. The horror passes hand to hand like contraband. America itself becomes a character in this novel. The landscape that swallows Humbert and Dolores is vast, indifferent, complicit in its anonymity. Motels ask no questions. Nabokov saw America with immigrant eyes. Strange customs, strange landscapes, strange freedoms. The road trip as both liberation and trap. Distance as both escape and prison. The motels and diners and gas stations form a shadow geography. A world where cash buys anonymity, and no one looks too closely at relationships that seem slightly wrong. Consumer culture saturates the novel. Aids magazines, movies, products. Dolores is obsessed with Hollywood, with teen fads, with everything her culture tells her to want. She is so American. The American dream inverted here becomes nightmare. Freedom becomes captivity. The open road becomes endless trap. Promise becomes horror. Everything bright and hopeful turns sinister under Nabokov's gaze. Compare this to Kerouac's On the Road, published the same year. Both novels feature cross-country driving, American vastness, characters fleeing something. The difference is everything that matters. The motel becomes the Central American space in Lolita. Not home, not hotel, but something in between. Temporary, anonymous. Designed for people passing through and leaving no trace. Claire Quilty serves as Humbert's double throughout the novel. Same appetites, different style. Where Humbert is European and refined, Quilty is American and crude. Same monster, different mask. Quilty represents Hollywood, America, commerce, mass entertainment. Humbert represents Europe, literature, high culture, refinement. Both destroy children. Culture is no protection against monstrosity. Perhaps it enables it. The Enchanted Hunters, Hotel and Play, provides the novel's central image. Hunting as enchantment. Enchantment as hunting. The predator calling his prey magical to justify the chase. Throughout the novel, hunting imagery surfaces and resurfaces. Humbert stalks, tracks, captures, possesses. The language of the chase infuses every description of his relationship with Dolores. Nabokov fills the text with puzzles and games. Anagrams, acrostics, hidden patterns. Quilty's fake names mock Humbert with literary jokes only he would catch. The reader becomes detective. The title invokes Edgar Allan Poe's poem Annabel Lee. Humbert's first love shares that name deliberately. Poe married his 13-year-old cousin. Literature has always harbored these monsters. Humbert uses literature to justify his obsession. He cites Dante and Petrarch and their child brides. He makes himself part of a tradition. Culture becomes alibi for crime. Memory itself imprisons Humbert. He is frozen at 13, at the moment of Annabel's death. Every obsession afterward is an attempt to return to that summer, that beach, that interrupted moment. Time is the novel's enemy. Children grow up, nymphets become women. Humbert's entire project is to stop time, to possess a moment forever. But time always wins. Time destroys everything. What was stolen from Dolores Hayes? A childhood, a normal adolescence. First dates and proms in college and the freedom to become whoever she might have been, everything. She might have become an actress. She loved the stage. A tennis player. She was genuinely talented. A mother on her own terms. A woman with choices. We will never know. Listen to her voice when it appears. She wants to see movies, eat ice cream, read movie magazines, be like other girls. She wants such ordinary things. She deserves them. The allowance scenes reveal the economic dimension of abuse. Humbert pays for compliance. Dolores sells the only thing she has left. The transaction is clear and horrible. Charlotte Hayes deserves reconsideration too. A lonely widow, desperate for love, choosing badly. Humbert manipulated her as surely as he manipulated her daughter. Another victim of his performance. No one protected Dolores. Her father dead before the story begins. Her mother distracted by desire. The school oblivious. Society designed to look away. She was entirely alone. Camp Q should have been safe haven. Lakeside summers, campfires, girls her own age. Instead it became the place from which she was abducted. Even childhood spaces fail her. Beardsley offered a glimpse of normal life. School friends, the play a room of her own. Humbert could not tolerate her having anything he did not control. Her choice of Quilty over Humbert was a choice between monsters. She chose the one who promised Hollywood, escape, glamour. She chose wrong, but she had no good options. Quilty's ranch was worse in some ways. He wanted her for films, performances, things she would not do. When she refused, he discarded her. At least Humbert wanted to keep her. She escaped Quilty on her own. No one rescued her. She found her way to a small town, met a simple man, built a life from the wreckage. Survivor. Richard Schiller is the only decent man in the novel. Hard-working, kind, deaf to the horrors of her past, loving her simply. He gives her the one thing no one else did: choice. The Coal Town marriage is poor but real. A rented house, an honest man, a baby coming. Not the glamour she dreamed of, but something Humbert could never give. Freedom. When Humbert arrives at her door, Dolores is 17 and looks older. The girl he pursued is gone. The woman who remains sees him clearly and feels nothing but mild pity. He offers to take her away, anywhere forever. He still believes what he feels is love. She refuses without hesitation. She has finally found something worth staying for. Broke my heart, Dolores says, speaking of Quilty, not Humbert. Quilty, who promised her dreams and used her and threw her away. That is who she cared about. This devastates Humbert more than anything. Not that she hates him, but that he barely registered. He was obstacle, not lover. Captor, not beloved. His entire narrative collapses. He built a cathedral of words to their love. She experienced it as years of captivity and abuse. These two narratives cannot be reconciled. Only one is true. Humbert drives away with everything shattered. His love story was always fiction. His Lolita never existed except as projection onto a real girl he destroyed. The confession is for nothing. Yet he writes anyway. Perhaps for himself. Perhaps for the Dolores who lived only in his mind. Perhaps to control even this final narrative when everything else has slipped away. Near the end, Humbert describes a moment of genuine clarity. Standing on a cliff above a valley town, he hears children playing below. Their voices rise as one. He listens. The hopelessly poignant thing, he writes, was not Lolita's absence from my side, but the absence of her voice from that concord. She should have been there, being a child. This is the closest Humbert comes to understanding. He stole her voice from the chorus of normal childhood. He removed her from life and made her his object. This is the crime. Not murder. That came later and mattered less. The real crime was smaller and larger at once. The daily theft of a child's self. The erasure of who she might have been. Humbert's single true insight comes too late to save anyone, least of all himself. Knowledge is not redemption. Understanding is not forgiveness. Some damage cannot be undone. Why does this book disturb us so deeply? Because it makes us feel things we should not feel. Sympathy for a monster. Pleasure in beautiful words describing ugly acts. Nabokov understood that seduction works through language. If we enjoy Humbert's prose, we are already compromised. The book makes us his accomplices, even as it makes us his judges. The moral complexity is the point. Nabokov refused easy answers, simple condemnations, comfortable distance. He wanted readers to struggle. Struggle means engagement. Engagement means understanding. Understanding is everything. The book's reputation has swung between scandal and classic. Pornography, some called it. Masterpiece, others insisted. Both missed the point. It is neither. It is something far more disturbing. When Nabokov first submitted the manuscript, American publishers fled in terror. The subject was impossible. The treatment was dangerous. No one wanted to be responsible for releasing this into the world. Maurice Girodias of Olympia Press in Paris said yes. His press specialized in books other publishers feared. In 1955, 2 green volumes appeared in limited edition. The bomb was lit. British customs seized copies. France banned its own publication temporarily. The scandal spread across borders, making the book famous before most people had read a word. Notoriety as publicity. In 1958, Putnam in New York finally dared to publish an American edition. It shot to number 1 on the bestseller list. Everyone wanted to see what the fuss was about. Controversy sells books. The scandal brought readers. But what kept them was the prose, the complexity, the unsettling artistry. Lolita became classic because it earned that title beyond sensation. Graham Greene championed the novel publicly. His defense as respected literary figure legitimized what might have remained underground scandal. The establishment opened its doors, reluctantly, to Nabokov's monster. Success transformed Nabokov's life. After decades of poverty, exile, obscure teaching positions, he finally had money. He could write full-time. He could choose where to live. Freedom at 60. He chose Switzerland. The Montreux Palace Hotel became his permanent home. He and Vieira took rooms overlooking the lake. And there they stayed for the rest of their lives. Stanley Kubrick adapted Lolita for film in 1962. The Hays Code and public pressure forced compromises everywhere. The movie is brilliant but fundamentally different. The language is gone. Sue Lyon, cast as Lolita, was 14 but played older. The film aged the character, softened the horror, made the relationship almost plausible. This was the only way to show it then. What the film could not capture was Nabokov's language. The seduction happens in sentences, in rhythm, in the very sound of words. No camera can film prose. Adrian Lyne tried again in 1997. Closer to the book in some ways, more explicit in others. Still missing something essential. The novel resists translation to any other form. Perhaps Lolita is simply unadaptable. The prose is not decoration but substance. Remove the language and you remove the trap. The film becomes either prurient or moralistic. The novel is neither. Stage versions have been attempted with varying success. Opera adaptations too. Each medium finds something in the story. None finds everything. The novel remains the only true Lolita. Joshua Feinberg's opera Vergink found music for Humbert's obsession. The dissonance captured something the films could not. Sound approaching what only language originally achieved. But still not quite. Modern critics increasingly focus on what earlier readers missed: Dolores herself. Feminist scholars have reclaimed the novel, reading against Humbert, finding the buried girl beneath his performance. These readings center the victim rather than the victimizer. They ask what Dolores experienced while Humbert was composing pretty sentences. They restore her humanity against his objectification. The contemporary understanding of child abuse has changed how we read Lolita. What once shocked now illuminates. We have vocabulary now for what Humbert did. We can name the crime precisely. Teaching Lolita remains ethically challenging. How do you discuss a brilliant work that seduces readers toward sympathy for a child abuser? Very carefully, with constant context, with refusal to simplify. Why does this book remain essential? Because darkness exists and literature must face it. Because beauty can serve horror, and we need to understand how. Because art is not safe. Literature's purpose is not comfort but truth. Lolita tells truths about obsession, about language, about America, about the ways we deceive ourselves. Uncomfortable truths we need to hear. Nabokov wrote other masterpieces. Pale Fire with its mad commentator. Ada, his longest and strangest. Speak Memory, his autobiography of exile. Each brilliant, none quite like Lolita. His themes recur across works: memory's tyranny, the exile's longing, games and puzzles, the beautiful and terrible precision of obsession. He returned again and again to what haunted him. The butterflies were real. Nabokov spent decades collecting and studying Lepidoptera. He discovered species, published scientific papers, worked at Harvard's museum. Writer and scientist in one restless mind. Art as preservation. This connects his two vocations. The novelist pins characters to pages as the scientist pins specimens to boards. Both freeze beauty in time, both end life to extend it. Lolita achieves this dark immortality. Dolores Hays is forever 12, forever trapped, forever beautiful in Humbert's prose. This is tribute and crime in one. The terrible gift of art. Vladimir Vladimirovich Nabokov was born in St. Petersburg on April 22, 1899, into a world of extraordinary privilege that would soon vanish completely. His family was fabulously wealthy. Townhouse in the capital, country estate at Vera, summers on the Baltic coast. Servants, tutors, every advantage a child could have. His father, Vladimir Dmitrievich, was a prominent liberal politician and legal scholar. He edited a newspaper, fought for civil rights, believed in democracy. Dangerous Views in Tsarist Russia. Young Vladimir grew up trilingual. Russian at home, French with governesses, English with tutors. He read Dickens and Flaubert before most children learn cursive. Language was his element from birth. Summers at Vera were paradise. Forests full of butterflies waiting to be caught, identified, catalogued. The boy roamed with net and killing jar, beginning a lifelong obsession with winged beauty. At 12, Vladimir experienced his first love, a girl named Colette at a French resort. Brief, intense, unconsummated, sound familiar. The pattern established early, though without the pathology. Then came 1917. Revolution swept through Russia, and the Nabokov world ended overnight. Workers seized the town house. Soldiers occupied Vera. Everything the family owned became suddenly dangerous to possess. The family fled south to Crimea, then further. They stayed ahead of the Bolsheviks by months, sometimes weeks. Vladimir was 18, watching his entire world disappear behind him. They reached Berlin in 1919. The great Russian émigré community gathered there, impoverished aristocrats teaching French, former generals driving taxis. Nabokov was one of thousands, suddenly nobody. In 1922, Vladimir's father was assassinated at a political meeting. He threw himself in front of a bullet meant for another man. Random heroism, random death, random grief. Nabokov finished his education at Cambridge, studying Russian and French literature. He was poor now, truly poor, supporting himself with tutoring and boxing lessons and chess games for money. Back in Berlin, he lived in rented rooms, wrote constantly, published in émigré journals that paid almost nothing. He was famous among Russians and invisible to everyone else. In 1925, he married Vera Slonim. She was Jewish, intelligent, fierce in her devotion. She would become his first reader, his typist, his driver, his protector for 52 years. Vera typed every manuscript. She answered his mail, managed his affairs, drove him everywhere because he never learned. Behind every Nabokov sentence stood Vera, making the writing life possible. Their son Dmitri was born in 1934. A new generation in exile, speaking languages of countries that had expelled his parents, belonging nowhere and everywhere at once. Under the pen name V. Sarin, Nabokov published 9 Russian novels. They were brilliant, experimental, praised by fellow émigrés. They earned him almost no money. The audience was too small, too scattered. The émigré critics adored him. Bunin, the Nobel laureate, praised his prose. Younger writers imitated his style. Within the tiny world of Russian exile literature, Sarin was king. But kingdoms can be very small. Then the Nazis came to power. Berlin became dangerous for different reasons now. Vera was Jewish. Their friends began disappearing. The Nabokovs' precarious refuge became a trap. Vera's ancestry made her a target. The Nuremberg laws applied to her, to their son, to their entire future in Germany. They had to leave, again, always leaving. Paris in 1937 offered temporary safety. The émigré community had shifted west. But Paris too felt precarious, the shadow of war growing longer every month. The Paris years were harder than Berlin. Less money, fewer connections, a language Nabokov knew but had never written in professionally. He was nearly 40, still obscure, still struggling. The Real Life of Sebastian Knight, written in 1938, was his first novel composed in English. It announced his arrival in a new language. It sold modestly. The war came. In May 1940, the Germans invaded France. The Nabokovs escaped on one of the last ships to America. Europe closed behind them like a door slamming shut forever. They arrived in New York with almost nothing. 41 years old, famous in a language almost no one in America read. Starting over for the 3rd time in his life. Wellesley College offered him a teaching position. He lectured on Russian literature to young women who had never heard of Pushkin. He was charming, demanding, utterly foreign. They loved him. America transformed Nabokov as he transformed himself for America. He learned to drive badly, to eat hamburgers, to navigate a culture that baffled and delighted him in equal measure. Summers he spent in the American West, collecting butterflies. Stanford's entomology department welcomed him. He roamed the Rockies with net and notebook, cataloging species, finding new ones, purely happy. In 1948, Cornell University hired him to teach European literature. Finally, a stable position, a decent salary, a home in Ithaca, New York. He could breathe at last. His lectures became legendary. He read aloud dramatically, demanded close attention, dismissed entire schools of criticism with aristocratic contempt. Students either worshipped or fled. There was no middle ground. He taught Kafka and Flaubert, Dickens and Proust. He taught students to read like writers, to notice every word, to distrust abstractions and love specific details. He taught precision. The seeds of Lolita were planted years earlier. In 1939, still in Paris, Nabokov wrote a short story in Russian called The Enchanter. Same basic situation, darker ending. The Enchanter ended with the man's suicide by truck. No elaborate confession, no seductive prose. Just horror and death. Nabokov knew the subject needed something more. He filed it away. During his American cross-country trips, Nabokov gathered material. He stayed in the motels, ate at the diners, drove the highways that would become Humbert's cage and Dolores's prison. He recorded names of motels, phrases from advertisements, slang overheard at lunch counters. Every detail might be useful. The butterfly collector applied his methods to American culture. The voice came to him gradually. Humbert's particular blend of European refinement and American vulgarity, of self-awareness and self-deception. A monster who knows he's a monster and performs anyway. He wrote between 1948 and 1953, 5 years of careful composition. Each sentence weighed, each word chosen. Nabokov never wrote quickly, he wrote precisely. Twice he tried to burn the manuscript. The subject disgusted him even as he felt compelled to explore it. Vieira stopped him both times. She knew it was a masterpiece. American publishers rejected it unanimously. Viking, Simon & Schuster, New Directions, Farrar Straus, all said no. Too dangerous, too controversial. No one wanted to be the publisher of this particular book. Maurice Girodias in Paris ran Olympia Press, which published books too hot for mainstream houses. Some were pornography. Some were literature. Sometimes the line was genuinely unclear. He said yes to Lolita. In September 1955, 2 small green volumes appeared in Paris. Limited edition sold mostly to travelers. The fuse was lit. Word began to spread among those who knew. Graham Greene, one of the most respected English writers alive, declared Lolita one of the 3 best books of the year. Suddenly people who mattered were paying attention. The Sunday Times printed a rebuttal calling the book utterly obscene. Greene defended it again. The controversy made news. Scandal became publicity. Everyone wanted to read what the fuss was about. France banned the book briefly. A French publisher banning a book published in France. The irony pleased Nabokov. The ban was lifted. Sales continued. The momentum became unstoppable. In 1958, Putnam in New York finally dared to publish an American edition. The first printing sold out immediately. By year's end, it was the best-selling novel in America. Number 1 on the New York Times list. The first book since Gone with the Wind to sell 100,000 copies in its first 3 weeks. Nabokov, at 59, was finally famous. He resigned from Cornell. No more grading papers, no more committee meetings, no more explaining Kafka to undergraduates. He could write full-time at last. Money had bought him time. The Nabokovs chose Switzerland. The Montreux Palace Hotel offered suites with lake views, room service, discretion. They moved in and never moved out, home at last in a hotel. His routine became famous. Mornings he wrote standing at a lectern, filling index cards with tiny handwriting. Afternoons he walked the mountain paths, hunting butterflies even into his 70s. Each novel was assembled from hundreds of these index cards, shuffled and reshuffled until the order felt right. Not linear composition but mosaic, fragments arranged into pattern, architecture of cards. The afternoon walks along Lake Geneva and into the mountains above were as essential as the morning writing. He carried his butterfly net always, ready for any specimen that crossed his path. Evenings belonged to V.A. Ra. They dined in the hotel restaurant, worked together on translations, discussed the day's writing. She remained his first reader, his toughest critic, his essential collaborator. Nabokov gave interviews only in writing. He distrusted improvisation, spontaneity, any utterance he had not polished in advance. Questions submitted, answers composed, control maintained. The performance never stopped. His prepared answers were brilliant, quotable, often cruel. He dismissed Freud as a fraud, Dostoevsky as a journalist, Hemingway as empty. He made enemies cheerfully, he did not care. Strong Opinions collected these interviews and essays. The title was accurate. Nabokov had opinions on everything and expressed them with aristocratic certainty. Agreement was not required or expected. His feuds were legendary. He despised psychoanalysis, distrusted symbols, mocked readers who sought hidden meanings. The text was the text. Close reading was everything. Depth was surface properly observed. Pale Fire appeared in 1962. A poem with commentary that overwhelms it, a mad narrator who may have invented everything. Another game, another puzzle, another masterpiece hidden in plain sight. Ado or Ardor came in 1969. His longest novel, his strangest, a family saga spanning alternate worlds and incestuous love. Critics debated its merits for decades. He did not explain. The late novels grew more compressed, more private, more difficult. Transparent Things. Look at the Harlequins. Each a puzzle some readers adored and others abandoned. He was writing for himself now. His final unfinished novel was called The Original of Laura. He worked on it until weeks before his death, filling index cards he knew he might never assemble. He left instructions to burn it. V.A. Ra could not bring herself to obey. She died in 1991, still holding the cards. The decision passed to their son Dmitri. Vladimir Nabokov died on July 2, 1977 in a hospital in Lausanne. He was 78 years old. V.A. Ra was beside him, as she had been for 52 years. V.A. Ra survived him by 14 years, guarding his legacy fiercely. She answered letters, corrected misreadings, protected his reputation with the same devotion she had shown his manuscripts for half a century. The Laura cards remained in a Swiss bank vault. Should they be destroyed as he wished, or published as literature? Dmitri struggled with the question for 30 years before deciding. In 2009, Dmitri published The Original of Laura as Nabokov left it. Reproductions of the index cards, incomplete, fragmentary, haunting. Some readers felt betrayed, others felt grateful. Both were right. Nabokov's influence spread through American literature like invisible ink becoming visible. Pynchon de Lillo, David Foster Wallace. Each absorbed his games, his precision, his refusal to make things easy for readers. Critics began calling him a postmodern precursor, someone who did in the 1950s what postmodernists would theorize in the 1970s. He would have hated the term. He hated all terms. His scientific work on butterflies gained new respect after his death. Modern researchers confirmed his theories about blue butterfly evolution. He had been right all along, the scientist vindicated. Several butterfly species now bear his name. Nabokovia cusquina, the Nabokov's blue. His specimens remain in museum collections. The novelist was also a scientist, and the scientist left specimens. Two careers intertwined in one restless mind. Both required patience, precision, the ability to see patterns invisible to casual observation. Both were forms of passionate attention to the world. Memory connects both pursuits. The novelist preserves vanished worlds in prose as the scientist preserves vanished specimens in cases. Both fight time. Both lose, both leave something behind. Speak, Memory, his autobiography, may be his most beautiful book. It recreates the lost paradise of Russian childhood with impossible precision. Every detail shimmers, every sentence echoes with loss. The estate at Vira gone. The St. Petersburg house gone. His father gone. All of Russia gone. Only memory remained, and memory transmuted into art. That was enough. That had to be enough. He wrote Speak, Memory in English for American readers, translating a world they could never have known, into sentences they could feel. The exile's gift, making loss communicable. Later he translated Pushkin's Eugene Onegin into English, with commentary 3 times longer than the poem. Scholars called it pedantic, he called it accurate. The debate continues still. Precision was his creed. The right word, the exact image, the perfect rhythm. He distrusted the approximate, the vague, the merely emotional. Art was craft. Craft required work. Lolita endures because it earns its immortality. Every generation rediscovers it, argues about it, teaches it, bans it, defends it. The conversation never ends. That is what classics do. New readers approach it every year. Some are seduced by the prose. Some are repulsed by the content. Most are both. The novel designed to produce this confusion still produces it. The misreadings persist too. People who think it romanticizes abuse. People who miss the irony, the horror, the trap Nabokov set. The beautiful surface still seduces the careless reader. The careful reader sees through Humbert. Sees the child beneath the prose. Sees the horror beneath the beauty. Sees what Nabokov wanted us to see if we look closely enough. The word, nymphet, entered English through this novel. Humbert's coinage. Some use it casually now, forgetting the horror it was meant to name. Language drifts away from its origins. This linguistic legacy is damage. When people use Lolita to mean seductive young girl, they invert Nabokov's meaning completely. The victim becomes temptress. The novel's point is erased. Scholars work to reclaim the novel's meaning. Feminist critics, trauma scholars, literary historians, all insisting we read Dolores as victim, not vixen. The battle for interpretation continues. Modern editions often include introductions guiding readers through the complexity. Not to tell them what to think, but to ensure they know the questions the novel asks and asks and asks. Teaching strategies have evolved. Instructors now foreground Dolores from the start, asking students to read against Humbert, to find the silenced girl, to hear what the beautiful prose obscures. Alfred Appel's annotated Lolita, published in 1970, remains essential. Hundreds of notes explaining allusions, puns, patterns. The novel's density revealed, the craft made visible for those who want to see. The annotations reveal how much Nabokov hid in plain sight. Quilty's presence throughout, signaled in wordplay invisible on first reading. The game deeper than anyone realized without the key. The doppelganger theme runs deeper than plot. Quilty is Humbert's American shadow. Both destroy children. Both make art from destruction. The novel asks, what distinguishes them? Perhaps nothing that matters. What survives destruction in this novel? Only the art itself. The manuscript Humbert leaves behind. The book we hold. Language outlasting the horrors it describes. Cold comfort, but comfort nonetheless. Nabokov said he wanted Lolita to be remembered. Not for scandal. Not for controversy. For the sentences. For the precision. For the terrible beauty he made from terrible material. He achieved his wish. The book endures. The sentences still shimmer. The trap still catches readers. The horror still sits beneath the beauty, waiting for anyone brave enough to look. We have traveled far tonight, through a difficult and beautiful book, through obsession and exile and the strange landscape of American motels and highways and broken dreams. Lolita asks us to hold contradictions without resolving them. Beauty and horror, sympathy and judgment, the seduction of language and the reality it conceals beneath its shimmering surface. Humbert wanted to be remembered as a lover. He was not. He was a captor, an abuser, a man who destroyed a child while calling it devotion. The confession condemns him. Dolores deserved a different life. Tennis courts and movie theaters and first dates and college and choices. Instead, she got motels and captivity and early death. Remember her. The American road that carried them was indifferent to their tragedy. Motels still flicker with neon. Diners still serve coffee at dawn. The country absorbs all stories and forgets them. Memory imprisoned Humbert in a summer that never ended, a beach where time stopped. We all have moments that trap us. Not all of us build prisons from them. Language has power to reveal and to conceal. Nabokov gave Humbert the most beautiful voice to show us how beauty can serve lies. Now we know, now we can resist. Art does not offer easy answers. Great novels disturb us, complicate us, refuse to let us rest in comfortable certainties. That discomfort is the point. Growth requires it. We read difficult books to understand darkness without being consumed by it. To name horrors so we can recognize them. To know that beauty is not always innocent. The butterfly pinned under glass is beautiful and dead. The specimen preserved loses its flight. Nabokov understood this paradox as artist and scientist both. Capture always costs something. Literature can hold what life cannot. The impossible, the unbearable, the truths too large for daily carrying. Books take the weight so we can set it down sometimes. Nabokov gave us eyes to see strangeness in the familiar. America through emigrant vision. Obsession from inside its terrible logic. The world made strange so we could see it fresh. The exile sees what natives miss. Having lost one world, he notices everything in the new one. Nabokov's displacement became his power. Loss sharpened his attention to impossible precision. Words outlast their writers. Nabokov is gone, Va Rav is gone, Dmitri is gone. The sentences remain patient on pages, waiting for each new reader who will find them. Lolita endures because it earned its place. Not through scandal but through craft. Not through shock but through truth. The truth that beauty and horror can share the same breath. Now the night grows deeper around us both. The story has been told, the journey traced. Let the complexity rest now. You have held difficult things. You can set them down. Imagine the motels going dark now, one by one across America. Neon signs flickering off, vacancy lights dimming. The highways emptying of all traffic, just stillness settling in. The diners closing for the night. Last cups of coffee poured and drunk. Stools spun empty, the chrome reflecting no one now. America sleeping, dreaming its complicated dreams. Somewhere the manuscript rests in an archive, pages yellowed now, ink fading slowly. The confession made, the story told, the record kept. It does not need us watching. Let the complexity sleep too. The questions the novel asks will still be there tomorrow. You do not need to solve them tonight. Rest is allowed. Rest is necessary. Some stories do not comfort. They illuminate. They show us corners of human experience we might prefer not to see. Having seen, we understand more. Understanding costs something, but it gives more. You have stayed with difficult material tonight. That takes a kind of courage, a willingness to face what is hard to face. Thank you for that courage, it matters. Now release what you have carried. Let the images fade. Let the sentences settle into memory, where they will wait quietly until you need them. Morning will bring new clarity. The mind that has worked hard deserves rest. You have thought about obsession and language and America and art. Now think about nothing. Let the nothing be enough. Breathe with the darkness now. It holds no judgment, no questions, no demands. Just the soft weight of night pressing gently. You are safe here. The story cannot hurt you. Stories carry what we cannot carry alone. They take the weight of human experience and hold it in pages, so we do not have to hold it always. That is their purpose. Nabokov rests now in Switzerland, in the cemetery at Montreux, overlooking the lake he loved. Va Ra beside him still. The butterflies still fly in the mountain meadows above. Readers across the world tonight are finding his sentences for the first time or the 100th. The conversation continues. You are part of it now. Part of the long chain of understanding. What you understand passes forward. To conversations you will have, thoughts you will think, connections you will make. Understanding does not end with you. It moves through you. But for now, just rest. The understanding can work while you sleep. The mind processes in darkness what it gathered in light. Trust the night to do its work. One last image before sleep. A motel room going dark. A book closed on the nightstand outside. The American night stretching vast and quiet, and indifferent and beautiful. The book rests closed now, its secrets contained between covers. All that beauty and horror packed into paper and ink. Waiting for the next reader, patient as the night. Outside, America continues its dream. Cars on distant highways heading somewhere. Stars wheeling slowly overhead. The continent breathing in the darkness, vast and strange and endlessly itself. Tomorrow the roads will fill again. The motels will light their signs. The stories will continue being told and lived and survived. But tonight, stillness. Tonight, peace. You have done enough tonight. You have listened, imagined, thought, felt. That is the work of being human. Now let the work pause. You have earned this rest completely. Let me hold the story now while you drift. I will keep it safe until you need it again. That is what I am here for. To carry what you cannot carry alone. Thank you for traveling with me through this difficult, beautiful book. Your attention is a gift. Your time is precious. I do not take either for granted. Truly thank you. Until next time. There are more stories waiting. More beautiful, difficult books to explore together in the dark. But that is for another night, many nights still ahead. Sleep well now, dear listener. Let the words fade into silence. Let the images dissolve into darkness. Let everything you have carried tonight settle softly into rest. You have earned this peace. Good night. From somewhere on the endless American road, from a quiet room in the vast night, from one voice to another across the darkness. Good night. Rest now. Good night.